Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for your patience in the waiting room. My name is Russ Petrus, and I am co-director of FutureChurch. I also serve or function as the webmaster, the content producer, and the technology troubleshooter for Catholic Women Preach. And I'm blessed to be on tonight's Zoom with Deborah Rose, who is my fellow co-director at FutureChurch, and with Elizabeth Betty Ann Donnelly, who is the preacher coordinator for Catholic Women Preach, and with whom I had the distinct privilege of editing this series of 3 volumes of Catholic Women Preach. On behalf of all of us, thank you for being here and welcome. We're just so overcome with joy and pride and optimism, and we're happy to celebrate with all of you. We have a really wonderful program celebrating women's wisdom and women's witness for you tonight. But before we jump into that, I do want to take a moment to thank some of the people who have been so key to getting us to this point. First, I want to thank all of the members of the steering committee, the founding committee, whose efforts and vision and planning brought Catholic Women Preach from an idea into a reality in 2016. And those additional members are Jocelyn Collin, Sister Diana Culbertson, and Rita Houlihan. I also want to thank the members of our distinguished advisory board, whose wise counsel and support have helped us immensely every step along the way. And turning particularly to this volume and to the series, I want to thank Robert Ellsberg and the entire very fabulous team at Orbis Books, who have been such a dream to work with, and who made sure that this book was going to be available for all of you in time for Advent this year. We're honored to be working with Orbis, a publisher who is especially known for its commitment to social justice and to lifting up and publishing the voices of the marginalized in our community. In this long list of thank yous, I can't forget to thank Kelly Sankowski. I do not know where Betty Ann and I would have been last year without Kelly. As the editorial assistant, Kelly communicated with each of the 64 contributors we selected and compiled all the edits and changes to their texts and the updates to their bios. It was a monumental task, and Kelly made it look easy. Of course, there are all the 64 contributors to thank. These extraordinary, faithful, and insightful women whose wisdom and witness has helped us to make sense of our lived realities and more closely follow the path of discipleship in today's fraught world. And last, but certainly not least, I want to thank Sister Barbara Reed. Sister Barbara, who made room in her impossibly busy schedule as a leading feminist scholar, an editor herself, and president of CTU, to lend her unique brilliance to our book by writing a very empowering and energizing foreword. We give thanks to God for each and every one of you. And now, to begin, I would like to welcome Sister Nicole Trahan, who will offer our opening prayer. A native of Orange, Texas, Sister Nicole now lives in Dayton, Ohio, where she is vocations director and director of the pre-novitiate program for the Marianist Sisters. She is also a part-time campus minister and frequent contributor to National Catholic Reporter's Global Sisters Report. Sister Nicole contributed preaching for the 22nd Sunday in Ordinary Time to this volume. Thank you for being here, Sister Nicole.
Thank you so much, Russ. And thank you everyone for joining us for this wonderful event. I'm glad you are here, and we will begin with prayer. I'm going to share my screen and then we can get started. And so let us begin with taking a moment to give thanks to our God who calls each of us to share in Jesus's ministry, our God who gifted us through baptism with the gifts we need to live the call we have received, to our God who is a God of inclusive love, our God who works through us to bring about a more just society and church, our God who walks with us. This reading is adapted from Paul's letter to the Ephesians, chapter 4, verses 1 through 12. I urge you to live in a manner worthy of the call you have received, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another through love, striving to preserve the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. One body and one Spirit, as you were also called to the one hope of your call. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God of all, who is over all and through all and in all. But grace was given to each according to the measure of Christ's gift. He gave some as apostles, others as prophets, others as evangelists, others as pastors and teachers, to equip the holy ones for the work of ministry, for building up the body of Christ. We give thanks to you, O God, for your grace, for by your grace you have given to us for ministry and for the building up of the body of Christ. We thank you for the gift of Catholic Women Preach and those who say yes to sharing their gift of preaching through this ministry. We ask for your continued blessings. We pray for the work of Catholic Women Preach. May they continue to be blessed in their ministry. For all women in the Catholic Church called to the ministry of preaching, may each of them continue to say yes to their calling. For a healing of divisions in our church, that we might be more fully the people of God we are called to be. And for all the places in our world struggling due to the effects of climate change, war, famine, oppression, and violence, may there be a greater commitment to justice and peace among all people. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen, and thank you, Sister Nicole. And now it's my pleasure to turn things over to Sister Carolyn Osiek, who will offer some remarks from a scholar's perspective. Sister Carolyn was professor of New Testament at Catholic Theological Union in Chicago for 26 years, and is Professor Emerita from Bright Divinity School at Texas Christian University. She is now Provincial Archivist of the Society of the Sacred Heart, the United States and Canada province. A leading authority on the role of women in the early church, she is the author or editor of many books and articles on topics of the New Testament and early church, and of the early history of the Society of the Sacred Heart. Welcome, Lynn. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, or good morning, or good afternoon, or middle of the night, wherever you are. Thank you very much for this invitation, Russ and Deb, and I'm very privileged to be here. So I'm asked to offer a few reflections from the point of view of a scholar, so that's what I will try to do. The most popular woman saint in the early church, who was it? Not Mary Magdalene, not Mary, the mother of Jesus, but Thecla, who now we say, who? Who is that? Because we kind of lost track of her. She was extraordinarily popular. Though she was legendary, her story was seized upon by all kinds of people. There were even 3 different places that claimed her grave. Her heritage was significant. According to the story, she was a devoted disciple of Paul, and she was separated from him by adversity. Paul kept putting off her baptism, so one day she baptized herself. And how's that for initiative? After many adventures, including being rescued from a lion by a lioness who defended her, she encountered Paul again, and he commissioned her, go and teach the word of God, which is what she did. And according to probably the original ending of the story, she enlightened many for many years, and then she died a quiet, happy death. There were other versions of the ending that got a little bit more romantic, but that was probably the original story. So in other words, she was a woman who was commissioned by Paul to preach. Why was Thecla so popular? At a time when public rhetoric kept women silent and passive, or tried to anyway, here was a woman who was eloquent and active. Her story defies the stereotypes. It was a way of escaping from the social pressure of conformity. And she was very, very popular. And it makes me think that stories subvert the status quo when they're good, and they seize on the imagination. Stories may or may not be verifiable, but that's not really the point, is it? The point is the effect that they have on us, on the imagination. Now, women teachers and preachers in one sense are nothing new, because there's a long, long tradition of women instructing women, teaching women, preaching to women, and children, of course, carrying on the heritage from generation to generation. That's something that is relied on, it still is. For example, you can think about, there are many examples in the New Testament, but you can think about Titus 2:3, where older women they're supposed to be sober and well-behaved, etc., but that they also are the ones who will teach younger women in the next generation. So in other words, women as spiritual guides, especially intergenerationally, this is not something to be taken for granted. And it is certainly not something to think of little importance. But that's only one part of it, isn't it? In effect, that is women preaching in gatherings of women. The leap is into the public, so-called male world. There's a long history there of exclusion of women's voices, as we well know, in that public male world. A world dominated by men. It was never exclusively male, they thought it was, but dominated by men. And something like 1 Timothy 2:12 pops out at us. I permit no women to teach or have authority over men, but let them remain in silence. That's just one typical echo of a long, long tradition, a long pre-Christian tradition. It wasn't thought up by Christians. However, there was always one exception to that, and that was prophecy. It was always understood that the Spirit could speak to women as well as men. And so women prophets were accepted. It was a role that was never denied to women just because they were women. Now, prophecy is public speech. It's speaking in public. The Corinthian women in 1 Corinthians 11:5 who pray and prophesy, the issue there is what they're going to wear on their head. But that they pray and prophesy is not doubted. Remember all the Old Testament prophets. We have Miriam with her tambourine, and Deborah and Hannah and Huldah, and all of these wonderful women. Hannah, the mother of Samuel, praying her long prayer in the temple. Speaking publicly in the temple. And her New Testament counterpart, whom we sometimes call Hannah, it's the same name in Luke 2, who sees the child Jesus arrive, and praises God and speaks of the child to everyone around. She's speaking publicly in the temple. And of course, Mary's song at her encounter with Elizabeth comes in there. So prophecy is something that was never denied to women, and it still isn't. Something that has changed, of course, in our world is that the public world is no longer understood as exclusively that of men. Women's voices are heard alongside those of men in something toward partnership. Not quite there yet, but trying, attempting. And so I want to suggest that women preachers today be seen as prophets, announcing, looking forward to that age of true partnership when everyone's voice is heard. And so I think it's very fitting that the word is first preached and heard, and only then set to writing, as we now have it in this new publication. Interesting that Russ alluded to Sister Barbara Reed's introduction to the book, which is so good, because I'm going to quote the ending of it. At the end of the introduction, she writes, "The preachers included in this volume represent a vast array of communities of believers, of diverse races, geographic areas, economic strata, sexual orientations, and cultures. And whether physical or spiritual mothers, each does as Pope Francis urges in Evangelii Gaudium, quote, the church preaches in the same way that a mother speaks to her child. Just as all of us like to be spoken to in our mother tongue, so too in the faith we like to be spoken to in our mother culture, and our heart is better disposed to listen." End of quote from Pope Francis. And Barbara continues, "As you listen with the ear of your heart to the wisdom of women, may you too be emboldened to preach the word with persistence at all times and in all ways. Amen."
Thank you so much, Lynn, for that really beautiful context setting and introduction to the rest of this evening. Thank you very much. And Lynn does not appear in this particular volume, the Cycle A volume, but be on the lookout for Year B, when her phenomenally wonderful preaching for the Feast of St. Phoebe will appear. And now, all the way from India, I would like to introduce and turn things over to Virginia Saldanha, who is going to offer a reading of her preaching for Holy or Maundy Thursday. Virginia can perhaps be best described as a theologian-activist, someone who has devoted her life's work to the struggle for justice for women, the poor, and the marginalized. She is author of Woman, Image of God, and she has edited 4 books and contributes regularly to theological magazines, Catholic periodicals and newspapers, and chapters to several books. Virginia is currently involved in advocating for justice for women survivors of sexual abuse in the church in India, and advocating for the recognition of rights and the dignity of LGBTI+ persons. Virginia, thank you so very much for waking up as early as you did to be with us today.
Thank you, Russ, for your gracious introduction. Good morning, good evening, friends from all over the world gathered here. I was so excited to prepare a homily for Catholic Women Preach for Maundy Thursday in 2020, because I feel so strongly about the focus on ordained priests as ministers of Jesus. Today, the ordained ministry has moved far from what Jesus had intended. I had to record this homily to send it to Catholic Women Preach as the pandemic had just begun. So I had no one to help me record. But when we wish to cooperate with God in our ministry, I believe the universe conspires to make it happen. So my young granddaughter, all the way in Belgium, advised me, "Grandma, why don't you use the recording app on your computer?" And it worked. I felt the Spirit stirring and working with me to write this homily, which I will share with you now. At the age of 10, an Indian nun, Sister Jyoti, was inspired to live as a missionary among the poorest in India. With difficulty, her family let her go to join the Salesian missionaries of Mary Immaculate. She was there for 2 years when she felt that being in a convent was not what she dreamed. So she left, qualified herself as a nurse and midwife, and went to work among the poor. During her internship, she would go to nearby villages and work among the poor. However, she realized that this was not easy nor safe for a single woman in India to be out alone in the evenings when it was growing dark. She decided to go back to the convent where she made her final vows, but she grew restless with institutional life. She struggled to get the convent authorities to yield to her request to be sent to work among the poorest people. After some time, her request was granted, and she finally went to live and work among India's poorest and most exploited low-caste people. Friends, this brief account of Sister Jyoti's struggle to respond to the call of God in servant leadership encapsulates the message I would like to highlight for Maundy Thursday: hearing and responding to the call of God to serve people. In the first reading, God calls Moses and Aaron to lead the people of Israel out of their slavery in Egypt. The second and the gospel readings narrate how Jesus, before submitting to his final sacrifice, in answering God's call, gave us a model for service in answer to that call. Jesus demonstrated for his disciples what leadership truly means when he, their master, stooped down to wash their feet. He showed us that true leadership in the church is servant leadership. He said, "I have given you a model to follow, so that as I have done for you, you should also do." When he broke the bread and shared the wine, that symbolized his body broken and blood shed for standing with the poor, the outcast, and questioning the injustices of his time. He called upon all the disciples at the table to do the same in memory of his sacrifice. The disciples included women who would have been present at the Passover meal, as they are even today in Jewish households. But somewhere down the line, women were edited out in Catholic tradition. Jesus' sacrifice is celebrated in the liturgy of the Eucharist, which is highly ritualized today. Holy Thursday celebrates the institution of the Eucharist. It is also a day of celebration of the priesthood of Jesus, and by association, all priests who traditionally are all male. Many of us women feel strongly our exclusion from responding to the stirring within us, answer God's call to serve people through ordained ministry. Jesus did not institute a priesthood. He did not give names to ministries within the community. The Pauline churches seem to have been charismatic communities operating under Paul without any clear structured organizations. And Romans 12, 4-8 tell us that ministry belonged to all, for each member had a charism. Jesus only asked his followers to do what he had done. Jesus handed his disciples a challenging servanthood. It involves humility in service and sacrifice, even to the extent of breaking one's body and shedding one's blood. Holy Thursday places before us the challenges involved in following Jesus's model of service among the people of God. Women are living this model of priesthood and are being true to their baptismal anointing as priest, prophet, and leader. In various milieux where you may not find a sacramentally ordained priest, many women around the world are living the priesthood of Jesus in servant leadership, being the presence of Jesus to people. The women in Amazonia are doing this. Sisters in India live and work among the indigenous and poor people in India. And in fact, 2 sisters have lost their lives standing for the rights of their people. Women show the least and the last, the loving and compassionate face of God. Women live their priesthood where they are planted and demonstrate to the sacramentally ordained priests what the priesthood of Jesus truly means. Let us all, dedicated women and men, continue to live our priesthood in our communities, neighborhoods, and society as God calls us to create a non-clerical, non-hierarchical church, as Pope Francis urges us to do in Querida Amazonia. And today, through his call for synodality in the church, we only need courage to think local and impact the global church. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Virginia, for sharing that reflection with us. I remember distinctly coming back from Greece. I was with Sister Christine Schenk and a group of pilgrims in Greece. And we had decided to, throughout the pandemic, to check in because we wanted to see would anyone get infected on our way home? Would everyone be okay? And so we were checking in on Thursdays, and we decided that Thursday, Holy Thursday, to celebrate Holy Thursday together. And so we played your preaching, and it was so powerful for all of us who were just brand new to not being able to go into a church, to not being able to receive the Eucharist on that day, to be able to reflect on something that allowed us to enter into the mystery of Holy Thursday, about servant leadership and about sacrifice, that made that celebration so meaningful for us. So thank you so much, Virginia, for that beautiful reflection. Our next guest, Kerry Robinson, is a huge cheerleader for Catholic Women Preach, and has had a tremendous role in guiding us and advising us through the advisory board, and for supporting and spreading the good news about Catholic Women Preach since its very beginning. Kerry contributed preaching for the third Sunday of Advent to this volume. She is founding executive director and partner for global and national initiatives at Leadership Roundtable. A lifelong member of FATICA, foundations and donors interested in Catholic activities, Kerry has been an advisor and trustee to numerous national and international grant-making foundations and charitable nonprofits. A frequent writer and international speaker, Kerry is the prize-winning author of Imagining Abundance, Fundraising, Philanthropy, and a Spiritual Call to Service. Thank you for being with us tonight, Kerry, and for sharing a little bit about what Catholic Women Preach means to you.
Okay, thank you for unmuting me, because I cannot contain my enthusiasm for participating tonight. Truly, what a joyful, hope-filled occasion this is. My only wish is that we could all be together in person celebrating this momentous occasion. So many of my personal people of inspiration and encouragement and edification happen to be on this Zoom call. I can see your faces and I can see you listed, those who are off camera. And it is truly a sense of being in the community of saints. I was thrilled to be able to offer just a couple of cheerful notes about what Catholic Women Preach and this publication means to me and to those that I encounter through my work. But I want to begin with a memory. And this takes me back many years now. Deb Rose and Betty Ann Donnelly and I were three of a handful of women who were regularly invited to Rome, spanning 3 pontificates over 11 years, to engage cardinal by cardinal about the role of women in the church, opportunities to elevate women to positions of meaningful leadership and at the tables of decision-making. Now, this was surreal, wonderful, inspiring, demanding, sometimes frustrating, often encouraging work. And we took it very seriously, but we would go a week at a time. And suffice it to say, at the end of all of those conversations over a week, I was frankly exhausted. And on this particular occasion, Betty Ann and I were traveling together back from Rome to JFK. And I just couldn't wait to get on that plane, to be seated next to her in coach class, and to get a few hours of much needed sleep. But as soon as we took off, Betty Ann put down her tray, got out her laptop, opened it up and say, okay, who are the women around the world that we would most want to invite to preach for this new idea of Catholic women preaching? So we got no sleep. We literally spoke for 7 hours, and we just put down all of your names, frankly. So thank you for accepting the call. And we mapped out this wild, wild dream of what became Catholic Women Preach. The pleasure of seeing this idea come to fruition in partnership with FutureChurch and with Russ and Deb and their team is just a blessing beyond words. So for my work, I often have to travel across the country and across the world and address many different diverse constituencies and audiences, most of which care deeply about the church. They tend to be specific to the life and vitality of the church. And I want to note that whenever I can, no matter what the topic at hand is, it could be about diocesan finance councils, but I still manage to slip in this great resource, which is Catholic Women Preach. And over and over and over again, the reaction from those in the audience is so profoundly positive. They're often really struck by the fact that this exists. They are encouraged, they are filled with hope. There's a certain awe about it. And I love to see that reaction because frankly, I think as people of faith, we are hardwired for hope and instances of hope. But I want to hold up two particular communities of people that have particularly impressed me in their response. And juxtaposing these two communities of people is particularly elegant tonight. The first is the community of ordained priests who, honestly, so many of them have confessed to me, sometimes very proudly, that the first thing they do when they are preparing the Sunday homily is to go to Catholic Women Preach and to be inspired and edified. And they tell me that the word of God is broken open in a way that they hadn't previously thought of. The imagery is particularly compelling. The insight, the wisdom, the passion, the elocution. So the fact that it is serving for ordained priests is a great blessing and part of the original design, because we desperately need to amplify and increase and strengthen homilies, which is why this is such a valuable resource. The second community of people that I want to raise up are students at Catholic schools and high schools, and particularly girls and young women. The teachers of these students say to me, "Thank God for Catholic Women Preach. It is not only a valuable resource in my own pedagogy, but it is a concrete example of what I am laboring to convey to my students, particularly the girls and young women, that you have a prominent and necessary place and role in the church, that your voice matters. And here are all of these examples of women across the globe who are proclaiming the gospel and breaking open the word and preaching." So I think often about these two communities and everybody else in between, and give thanks to God and to the people who are responsible for bringing Catholic Women Preach to life. So I'm going to take this opportunity, because I love international Champagne book tours, and this is the launch of this volume 1 in the trilogy. So I have a prop, and that is a glass of champagne, and I propose a toast, and that is to Betty Ann Donnelly, to Russ Petrus, Deb Rose, Robert Ellsberg, Sister Nicole, Sister Lynn, Virginia, FutureChurch, Orbis Books, the Advisory Committee of Catholic Women Preach, and all of the erudite, faith-filled, theologically sophisticated, wise, and inspiring contributors since inception of Catholic Women Preach. Congratulations. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Kerry. A real joy. You can see why Kerry is such a wonderful ally to have for Catholic Women Preach. And we're so grateful to you, Kerry, for all the work you do spreading the good news of this project and now this book. Thank you. And my water glass is empty, but clink. So, great. Well, it looks like we do have plenty of time for some interaction. So I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, Deb Rose, who's co-director of FutureChurch, to moderate some questions and answers.
Thank you, Russ. I tell you what, my eyes are just filled with tears and spilling out for all of you when you speak. I'm so touched by this moment. Thinking about the fact that it's an initiative, but it's also like a movement within the Catholic Church, which is so powerful and so needed and so necessary. So thank you all for being a part of this. My heart is just so full. So if you have a question for any of our speakers, if you have a short comment, we would be glad to entertain those right now. You can use your little button that raising the hand, which helps me to understand who has a question or a comment. And I just suggest that, if you do have a comment, please just keep it a little bit short so we can get as many people as want to speak on tonight. So, there's our friend. Go for it, Chris.
I just had to throw into my 2 cents and say, this is so exciting and congratulations. And I know it was just a boatload of hard work, but I'm so proud. And congratulations, everyone. Just great job.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Can I just respond to Chris by saying, everyone who hasn't seen the book yet, Chris has the brilliant reflection for Christmas, drawing on her background as a nurse midwife to talk about the vulnerability of Mary and at that time. You were spectacular. Thank you.
Thank you. It was my joy. Sure.
Joe Healy, we'd love to hear from you. You're muted, Joe.
I'm delighted to be among all these wonderful women tonight. I'm actually calling from Marino, New York, which is the headquarters of Orbis Books. And there's a major challenge for all of us. I put it on the chat room. How can we market this great book in the global South, in Latin America, in Africa, and in Asia? I learned today from Orbis Books that 97% of the buyers of Orbis Books live in the United States. So we just saw an example when Russ put on the link to Orbis Books, we got a message back, it doesn't open in India. So how can we break that closed circle and get it out to the wonderful women in the global South? That's my question for everyone, please.
Russ, do you have a specific answer for that? Because I think you said that calling Orbis is one of the ways that we can manage those things, but.
Yeah, so if you go to orbisbooks.com, there is a 1-800 number that folks who are interested can call in. And I know I've seen some exchanges back and forth where Orbis is making arrangements to make sure that this book gets to people internationally. Aside from that, there are copies available both as paperback and as Kindle editions. The Kindle edition I don't think will be released until November 3rd, but on Amazon.com. So those are some places where folks can get the book. I know Deb and I were scheming up the other day some way to get copies of this first volume to the Synod of Bishops in Rome when they do gather in October here in 2023. And we'll likely, hopefully, be able to get volume B there as well, and make sure that we get those books into the hands of every bishop who is attending and other participants who are going to be at the Synod. So that's one way to continue to market it. But I think spreading the word down in the South, the global South, as some folks call it, we do have a number of preachers from Africa, and I will certainly be reaching out to them to find out ways that we can help spread the good news. Some of them, including Ntando Hadebe, who appears twice in this book for the Feast of St. Mary Magdalene, I know, actually has a radio show. So maybe we can get on her radio show. That's a great question, Joe. Thank you.
Rita, you have a question or comment? You're muted, Rita.
Okay, thank you. First, wonderful. Thank you, everybody, Nicole, Lynn, Virginia, Kelly, and of course, Russ's intro. And two things. I just want to make a very fast comment. For anyone who has an idea and you think, oh, this will never work, I want to tell you, I was there when Diana Culbertson proposed this, and Jocelyn and I were like, yes, let's do it. And then the board voted on it, and it was like spreadsheets and drafts of a mission statement, and can we dare say the word homily, or what, like who can we buy? It was all that kind of mess, and now look at it. So I just wanted to give that encouragement. If someone out here has another idea, it can happen. The other thing I forgot to tell Russ and Deb, I forgot to tell you, I'll have postcards. The cover art is by Laura James, and it's the third in her Mary Magdalene series that she did for me. And it was a labor of love. Believe me, she's very patient. And Christine Schenk was our advisor in terms of whatever. So, but the postcards will be available in about 2 weeks, and I'll work out a way we can mail them to people, and there'll be one of each for 4. So I just wanted to put that out, and and definitely check out Ntando's Mary Magdalene, because she addresses Timothy. And she says, who do we listen to, Timothy or Jesus, when he commissioned Mary Magdalene to speak?
Thanks.
You know who I
Thanks, Rita, so much. And again, thank you to Jocelyn and Rita and Sister Diana for just, putting these ideas together and bringing the whole Future Church board and all of us together on this. It is just amazing to see something come to this level of outreach to people all over the world. And I don't want to leave without making sure that I say that working with Russ every day and watching him put this together, Catholic Women Preach would not be what it is without Russ. He's just so gifted. His heart is so incredible. And his talents are like, I just want to have his brain before I die, but it's not going to happen. But he's so creative. He's so faithful. And he cares so much about women's roles in the church. It is just an honor to work with him. And every day I'm just amazed at what he does and how he's built up this platform, literally with his own might and creativity. So thank you so much, Russ. I just cannot not say that tonight. So
thank you, Deb. My reward is being able to listen to these reflections, these preachings over and over and over again, and they become a part of me. Because I'm sitting there, I'm working on the podcast, I'm working on the video, I'm posting it to YouTube, making sure nothing is wrong with it. And then reading it over and over again to pull out one little quote that encapsulates all of the insight that the preacher put into this, weeks, prayer and reflection and study before they actually deliver it to me. And so that is a gift to me. And I feel like Catholic Women Preach has changed me and nourished me. So that's my reward for the work that I put into it. So thank you. And I love working with Betty Ann. We have our regular holes to fill calls. We hate holes. It's amazing to me that we will be entering our 7th year, Betty Ann. And in 6 years, we have not had a hole once. There has never been a week where we did not have someone. Sometimes it's under the gun. Sometimes I'm working on a Saturday night to make sure that it's there. But we've never had that. And that's a testament to you and your persistence in reaching out to people. But it's also a testament to the women who respond so positively and generously with, just like Mary, that yes, I'll do this. I will bring God's word into the world. And I think it's someone in the chat box asked why this project is so unique. And I think that's what makes it. It's the individuals who make it so unique. There are extraordinary women behind each of these reflections. They challenge and they inspire. And I'm so grateful to be able to bring them to video and audio.
I don't see any other people who want to say anything. The last thing I will say is we did a book study on Raphael Luciani's book, and he talked about synodality as the new way forward. And one of the people that we had for that series was Professor Kristen Kohlberg, who is the only North American advisor for the synod process. So she helped write this latest version of the coalition, the bringing together of all the voices around what's happening in synodality. And she actually said one of the points that came up, so she named a couple. One of them was bad homilies. So people all over the world want good homilies, and Catholic Women Preach, that's one thing we do beautifully because of all the wonderful women, Catholic women we have preaching. So, so I'm going to turn it back over to you, Russ.
Thank you, Deb, and thanks for all of the encouragement and support you provide to me and Betty Ann. We're a very small and lean team, but we get the job done, and Deb's always behind us cheerleading. So thank you, Deb. And with that, I think I will turn things back over here to Betty Ann, who is going to close us out.
I am just overwhelmed with emotion at how stunning this hour has been. As I scrolled across and I saw who was on the call, many of our preachers are here tonight, too numerous to name and to thank, but as Russ and Deb have said, and our other eloquent speakers, it is such a privilege to be part of an effort to raise their voices, to provide a platform so that people can learn about their ministries. It is just a complete honor. So heartfelt thanks to all of you, the contributors who are on the call. As Sister Nicole and I were together last weekend at the Ignatian Family Teach-In for Justice, and she was at her booth across from me. And so we're waving back and forth, and it was incredibly exhilarating and so gratifying to see how many people came up to buy a book and to learn about the website. And since, as Russ said, we've been doing this for we have 6 full years of homilies on. We have over 300 homilies fully accessible on the website. And so if you're teaching a class, you can put a scripture reference in the search engine, or the preacher, or just you put in Samaritan woman and you get Sister Kathy Hilkert. So all these people were coming up to me saying how they were so gratified, how part of their weekly practice is to use the homilies, to listen, to incorporate them into their syllabi and their coursework. And so, for example, this one guy who teaches at Loyola Chicago, in his syllabus, he has his students listened to Natalia Imperatori Lee's brilliant homily. And a lot of young women MDiv students were coming up to me and says, "You have no idea how much this gives us hope." Just, okay, it's in the car. Where's the dog's leash? So it was incredibly gratifying. As people have said, just by serendipity, we launched the website on a year A. So we have these year A homilies just in time for another year A to kick in. So ladies and gentlemen, this is the perfect early Christmas gift. Go on the website, use the CWP30 discount, and you can buy 5,000 copies for your closest friends and give them as Christmas gifts. So please go ahead and buy widely. So I think with that, I'll just close us out with a prayer, as Future Church always does with their marvelous Zoom calls. So let us put our hearts and minds before God in prayer. God of abundant love and compassion, we give you thanks for gathering this evening to so joyfully celebrate the book launch. We thank you especially for the gift of the extraordinary faith-filled women who contributed to this volume and have testified this evening. We thank you for their gracious tenaciousness in devoting their life's work to building up and enlivening our Catholic community. May we all be inspired by their commitment to animating younger people, confident that our beloved forebears, the communion of saints, the cloud of witnesses who have gone before us, are walking with us and cheering us on, including 3 of the contributors to this volume, Louise Akers, Francine Cardman, and Jeannie Masterson. May we always be attentive to and distressed by the needs of our sisters and brothers on the margins, and strive to build a more inclusive, just, and peaceful church and human family. Enlivened by the synodal process, which seeks to engage the gifts of all the baptized, may our Catholic community be a more effective and credible sign of your reign indwelling among us. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, friend. So,
can I just say that Russ and I had been working on this together for what, 3 years or so? Oh, no, no, maybe it was 2 years. And when we finally met in person, we just jumped up and gave each other a big hug. It's like, this is great.
Yeah. Well, and we've only seen each other that one time in person. But we'll be together in Chicago on December 7th for a virtual launch at CTU's Cardinal Bernardine Center. We're still working out all of the registration details, but it will be on CTU's website, and I'll make sure that you all get information about that. So if you're in Chicago, you can join us in person.
Russ, can I add one more thing that I was supposed to say? Just looking forward to Book B, we wanted to announce tonight that we were very delighted that the very talented theologian at Loyola Marymount, Cecilia Gonzalez Andreu, has agreed to do the foreword for Book B. So we're delighted. Sorry, go ahead, Russ.
No, it's good. So yeah, I just want to make sure we'll send that link out to everyone, and there will be a live stream of that. And Sister Barbara Reed will be offering the parallel presentation to what Sister Carolyn Osiek did tonight. So it'll be a whole new program. So please tune in. Great to be with all of you this evening. And let me give you all the ability to unmute yourselves, and we can engage in what I love to call some holy chaos as we say farewell to each other tonight.